So last night I called my cousin Jeff. I asked him how he was doing. He says, Jeremy, I got a story to tell you. I said, all right, let me hear it. He said, a couple of weeks ago, me and the old lady went down to visit Grandma and Grandpa, and you know how conservative Grandma is. I said, yeah, I know exactly how she is. He said, you know, she made me sleep in the bed with Grandpa, and the old lady sleep in bed with her. What the heck? You guys have been married for 10 years. He said, I know. But the bad part is, I was laying there in bed, middle of the night, I'm laying there sleeping. Grandpa wakes me up. He says, get up, get up. I'm going to go down there and service your grandma. I'll send your wife up here. He said, I've got the biggest erection that I've had in 15 years. You know what I told him, Jeremy? I said, what'd you tell him? He said, I told him, well, you better take me with you because that's my erection that you're holding on to. No. So last week, my Uncle George turned 60, and he's been single his whole life. As a matter of fact, I don't even think he's ever been with a woman. So I ordered him up a call girl. Well, last night I called him, asked him how it was. He said, Jeremy, was that you? I said, yeah, it was me. How'd it go? He says, well, let me tell you what happened. The other night, I was sitting in my chair watching Wheel of Fortune, and the doorbell rang. So I got up and opened the door, and there's this woman standing there with high heels on, a short mini skirt, and a tube top. And she says, I'm here for super sex. You know what I said to her? I said, oh, man, what'd you say to her? I said, well, it all depends on what kind of soup it is. So about a month ago, my Uncle Rudy got put into a nursing home, so I called him last night to see how he was doing. He says, oh, Jeremy, I'm doing just great. He says, I've met all kinds of new friends, and we're doing all these activities, and every night before bed, they give us this great big cup of hot chocolate and some Viagra before we go to sleep. I said, hot chocolate and Viagra? I said, what's that for? He says, well, I believe that the hot chocolate is to help us fall asleep, but the Viagra, I don't rightly know. He said, but the nurse just came in. You could talk to her. I said, yeah, put her on the phone. I get on the phone with her. I said, my Uncle Rudy just told me that you give him hot chocolate and Viagra before bed every night. I said, yes. I said, well, what's that for? She says, oh, honey, well, the hot chocolate's to help him fall asleep, and the Viagra, that just keeps him from rolling out of bed at night.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud. Whoa, what happened to your eye?
Well, I was playing Frisbee, and then I was wondering why it kept getting bigger and bigger, and then it hit me.
That's terrible. Are you okay? Last night I called my grandma, asked her how she was doing. She said, Jeremy, I'm pretty mad at your grandpa. I said, oh, man, what happened? She said, well, yesterday I was out in the garden picking weeds. Your grandpa comes up and says, honey, your booty is getting real big. And I just kept on picking weeds. He says, no, it's getting real big. I bet it's as big as the barbecue. And you know what he did next, Jeremy? I said, well, what'd he do? He went and got the tape measure. He took the tape measure up to my butt, and then he went over to the barbecue. He come back and said, see, it's the same size. I just kept on picking weeds. Later on that night, your grandpa tried to get a little frisky with me. I just brushed him off. He said, come on, honey, let's do a little something. I looked straight at him and I said, baby, you want me to fire up this big-ass grill from one tiny little weenie? No. So the other day I called my cousin Sherry from down in Missouri, asked her how she was doing. She says, Jeremy, I'm doing just fine, but I got a story to tell you. I said, well, let me hear it. She said, you know, the other day I took the baby down to the doctor to get a checkup. Doctor checks baby over and says that she looking malnourished. Next thing I know, he's telling me to take my clothes off. I mean, he was a good-looking doctor, so naturally I obliged. And next thing I know, he's rubbing up on my breasts, squeezing them and massaging them. I mean, he's being real professional, but he starts squeezing my nipples, and then all of a sudden he says, well, no wonder the baby's malnourished. You ain't got no milk. I looked at him and I said, well, of course I don't have any milk because I'm the grandma, but thank you. It's been a while since I've been touched like that. Yesterday was my grandma and grandpa's 50th wedding anniversary, and I forgot to call him, so I called my grandpa up tonight, wished him a happy anniversary. He said, Jeremy, I got a story to tell you. I was like, all right, well, let me hear it. He says, last night I had the best chicken and dumpling soup that I've ever had. And matter of fact, the only other time that I had it just as good was the night of my honeymoon. And your grandma gets done cooking. You know what she said? I said, Grandpa, what'd she say? She said, how about we sit down and eat this at the table like we did the night we got married? So naturally I obliged, and we took off all our clothes, and we're sitting there eating our food, and she looks across the table. And you know what she said then? I said, no, Grandpa, what'd she say? She said, honey, My nipples are just as hot for you as they were the day we got married. I looked her square in the eyes and I said, baby, that's because they're in your soup. So I called my grandpa the other day. I asked him how he was doing. He said, Jeremy, do you know why married women are heavier than single women? I said, Grandpa, I'm not touching that subject. He says, oh, son, I love your grandma to death, but there's a science behind it. I said, all right, well, let me hear it. He says, well, what happens is a single woman will come home at night. First thing she does is check out that fridge, sees there's nothing in it, and she goes to bed. Now, here's the part you need to pay attention to. A married woman will come home. The first thing she does is goes and sees what's in the bed and then heads on over to the fridge. The other day I called my grandma, I asked her how she was doing. She says, oh, honey, I got a story for you. You know your nephew Randall? I said, yeah, he's pretty wild. She says, oh, you don't even know the half of it. A couple weeks ago, he was sitting there watching the YouTube, and I thought I could sneak away and take a shower. Well, about 10 minutes go by, he had to run in there and tinkle, and he gets done, he turns around, he rips open the shower curtain, and he says, Grandma, what's that between your legs? I said, oh, honey, that's just my beaver. He says, okay, and he runs out and goes and watches the YouTube again, and a week later, same thing. He's sitting there watching the TV. His mama thinks she can go away and take a shower. And he runs in there to go tinkle again. And as he leaves, he rips open the shower curtain. He says, Mama, I know what that is between your legs. She says, what, honey? He said, that's your beaver. She says, yeah, how do you know? He says, well, because Grandma got one too, but I think it's dead because it's got his tongue hanging out.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud.
My girlfriend broke up with me today, and I said, that's okay, because you kind of remind me of Thanksgiving dinner. And then she says, Thanksgiving? Well, what does that mean? And then I said, hey, listen, I get really excited at first, but when I'm done with the turkey, it makes me really tired, kind of like this whole relationship.
I just got off the phone with my cousin Jeb from down in Alabama and asked him how he was doing. He says, oh, Jeremy, I'm healing up from a vasectomy. I said, oh, I know how that goes. I had to have it done twice. He says, well, you wait until you hear this story. I went down to the local veterinarian because that's the closest doctor in town. I told him I needed a vasectomy because I got 11 kids in the bed and we ain't got room for no more. He told me that the vasectomy is very expensive. I said, I ain't got a whole lot of money. He says, I got another plan. He says, you take yourself an empty beer can, you put a cherry bomb in there, and you hold it up to your ear and you count to 10. I said, Doc, I ain't a smart man, but I don't think that's going to work. Doctor told me it will work. I promise you. I said, all right, I'll try. So I went home. I got the cherry bomb, put it in there, put it up to my ear. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Today I called my grandma, I asked her how she was doing. She said, Jeremy, I'm doing just fine. You know, I've been working at that ice cream shop, don't you? I said, yeah. She says, well, I got a story to tell you. This little kid comes in there and he says, I'd like to have a scoop of chocolate and a scoop of vanilla. I said, honey, we don't have any chocolate, but I can give you the vanilla. He said, all right, that's fine. I'll have a scoop of strawberry and a scoop of chocolate. I said, we don't have no chocolate. He says, all right, no big deal. I'll have a scoop of butter pecan and a scoop of chocolate. I said, honey, can you spell the van in vanilla? He said, yes, I can, V-A-N. I said, all right, now spell the butter in butter pecan. He said, all right, B-U-T-T-E-R. I said, okay, can you spell the straw in strawberry? He said, yes, S-T-R-A-W. I said, all right, honey, now spell the fuck in chocolate. He said, ma'am, there is no fucking chocolate. I said, that's what I've been trying to tell you.